is the coronavirus here to stay? Well, there are many things that I want to talk to you about regarding the coronavirus, and I want to start off with tracking COVID-19, also known as coronavirus. Now, as of to date, they are stating that we're on track to hit 4 million cases here in the United States. Here in the world regarding the coronavirus. So when we talk about the coronavirus and you hear the many debates that are going on and wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, social distancing and so forth, all of this is real. And again, the coronavirus doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. Remember that we started our quarantine in March of this year. Now the coronavirus was here way before that, but we were unaware of it. But March of this year is when we began our quarantine, and we have seen so many deaths since then, and it continues to go on a day-to-day basis. So I want to get started with tracking COVID-19, especially here within the U.S. as we reside here. And there's a table that I'm going to ask the engineer to pull up as we track the COVID-19 cases in the United States. Again, as you are watching the news, I'm sure that you are familiar with the cases that have been surging in these southern states and so forth. And so as we look at this table, as you see here, California seems to be on top with the amount with the most cases, and that's at 421,286 is where they are now. Now, I need to say this as we are looking at this table. This information, the source as to which this information was obtained is from Johns Hopkins University Center. Now, and as we look at these numbers, as high as these numbers are, you have to know that the numbers are even higher than that. And the reasons I say that is because there are many people who have been affected with the coronavirus and have not been tested, or people who have been affected by it and did not even know that they had the virus. So we have to assume reasonably that there are a lot more cases than is being placed here on this list. So let's go back to this list. Again, California is on top with 421,286. And then following California, you see New York. New York has a total of 886 cases. But let's go to the deaths. If you look over to the deaths, California has 8,047 people who have died from coronavirus. But look at the numbers in New York State. 32,558 people have been recorded as died of coronavirus. And again, these numbers are much higher because there have been some deaths that have taken place that have not been singled out to the coronavirus, but certainly is associated and had to do with the coronavirus. So again, we can assume that these numbers are higher than what they are now. And then if you go on, Florida is next, third in line with 379, 619 cases, and following Texas, New Jersey, Illinois, Georgia, Arizona, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and so on and so forth. So as we look at this list of the cases and the death that has taken place as a result of coronavirus, starting from at least March of this year, you see the numbers here. It's a lot more than this. Yesterday, I told you about this app that I downloaded on my phone called the Citizens app. And the reason, again, I downloaded it was because it gives you information, especially in your area, about COVID-19 cases. And yesterday, I stated to you that I was thinking about taking it off just because of all the other notifications that come in regarding assault and robbery and all these other things that take place within New York City. But I got a notification yesterday from the Citizens app, and it stated that 98 cases, new cases, were announced yesterday in New York City, specifically in New York City. And out of the 98 new cases, there were 2 new COVID hospitalizations and 3 new deaths. And again, this is all regards to New York City. So it also stated that it is still spreading, but it's spreading slowly. nonetheless, it's still spreading. And I think that's what we need to keep in mind and understand. No matter what the numbers are that they are giving us, and again, they can never have the exact accurate numbers in pertaining to the number of people infected or affected by coronavirus and the number of deaths that have taken place. And so we have to keep in mind that it's still spreading. So why is that important? Because we need to continue to wear our masks. We need to continue to practice social distancing. We need to continue to wash our hands as often as we can. Cuomo announced yesterday as well that there's a list of New York State's travel advisory has been expanded to 31 states now. 31 states it has been expanded to, which means that people coming from states that have a surge in coronavirus, they need to quarantine themselves. If they are intending to come to New York, they need to quarantine themselves for at least 14 days. And I can tell you right now that it's not going to happen. It's absolutely not going to happen. My husband said to me, when I'm driving and I look at all these license plates, I see license plates from Arizona, from Kentucky, from Georgia, from all over the place. People are, surprising to me, people are still vacationing even in the midst of this pandemic. And certainly New York City has always been a hot spot for tourists. People love to come to New York City. I can't tell you the countless times when in the past when we were out in the street and you would see tourists in abundance, especially on Sundays. They were all over the place looking for the churches, wanting to hear gospel music. And so even in the midst of this pandemic, people are still vacationing and they are still traveling, especially now that they are aware that the cases in New York City are slowing down as compared to other states. So they're going to come here. And if you think that they're really going to actually quarantine themselves for 14 days, then you are sadly mistaken. They're not going to do that. And so as it stated yesterday that there were 98 cases within New York City, we're going to see that continue. We're going to see the coronavirus continue to spread. It's also reported within New York City that there have been over 200 complaints against restaurants as far as not being in compliance to the coronavirus. Now, again, the three practices that they are saying that will decrease the number of people being affected with the coronavirus is 1, wearing a mask, 2, social distancing, and 3, washing your hands. And so as we learned about the over 200 complaints that have been filed against restaurants in New York City since the opening of outside dining, what we notice is that they're not practicing the social distance. And, how can you go to a restaurant and wear a mask? Obviously, you must take the mask off in order to eat your food. I said earlier this week that I don't think I can ever go back to sitting in a restaurant again. These days are so different. We are living in a new normal. The new normal to wear masks. The new normal to try to social distance, which people are not complying to, by the way. And so as we look at all of this, it's going to continue to spread. They're talking about a second wave is going to hit in the fall. And I'm thinking, my God, we haven't even really gotten over the first wave. So to even think about dealing with a second wave, it's a lot to deal with. In any regards, the U.S. government now has an approved vaccine in which they are trying to distribute. And the major hurdles that they are facing is the big debate about this approved vaccine is who to give the vaccine to first. They are debating as to who should have it. Should the essential workers have the vaccine first? Should it go to those who are in dire need of it, who are actually going through it first? So this is the debate that's going on. And I'll tell you this. I don't put any trust in the government. Vaccines on a norm usually takes a number of years before you can come up with the vaccine. And even when a vaccine, when they do come up with one, it's not of a certainty or surety that it's going to work. And so this vaccine that's been approved, and the Trump administration is trying to push this vaccine. Again, I say to those people who will be, whoever they decide to give this vaccine to first are going to be the people that they're going to be testing it on. So as we look at all of this, it's very, we are in the midst of the tribulation. I think that needs to be said. So all of this is part of what is to take place. And again, going back to the early days of March, when we were going about our business as we normally do, these days are so different now. There is a new normal that we are facing with now. Can you go back to do the things that you normally did prior to the coronavirus? I certainly cannot. And so as we look at all of this and we continue to do all of this, I don't go out quite often unless I'm coming to the church. In the past 4 months, of dealing with the coronavirus, I think that we have driven out of New York City twice my husband decided just to take our family out for a drive, a couple of hours out of New York City to a large park where really no one was practically there. And the children, had a different scenery and could run around and do things. And I will tell you that this is a new normal for us. Practicing social distancing, it's going to be very difficult, especially for children. And in another segment, I'll get into the school issue regarding children and social distancing and the huge debate on schools reopening in the fall. But these are days that we have never seen before. And so I wonder if this is just the first wave and we are dealing with all of this, what is going to happen in the second wave? Thanksgiving is coming up. Christmas is coming up. We're not going to be able to celebrate the way we used to celebrate. I know that people, of course, gather together for Thanksgiving dinners. Of course, there are some people that you should not be gathering with. When we talk about spiritual distance, there are some people that you need to stay away. But nonetheless, people still gather together on Thanksgiving with their family and friends. Will this Thanksgiving be different from other Thanksgiving? And I can tell you right now, for some people, no, it's not going to be. They're still going to gather together. They're still going to do the things they normally do. But for many, it's going to be different. Coronavirus has affected so much of the way we live. Restaurants, though they are having outside dining, restaurants are not seeing an increase the way they used to. Foot traffic in stores are slowing down. Travel is slowing down. So the coronavirus is affecting everything. Our everyday normal life or way of living, it has affected everything in every aspect. And again, as we talk about going into the second wave, it's going to increase. More people are going to die. More people are going to be affected by this. I spoke to you earlier this week regarding the coronavirus parties that young people are having. And, it's people are not taking this seriously. There are large debates. People have been killed over not wearing masks. And there's this large debate about you're infringing on my rights. But the thing that I often think about is these people saying that their rights are being taken away from them, from forcing them to wear a mask, are not thinking about the fact, or not caring, should I say, that you can infect someone else. I looked at a story last night of a 21-year-old son who did not wear his mask and did not practice social distancing and hung out with his friends and so forth. And he got infected with the coronavirus. And because he got infected, he was living with his parents. His parents also got infected, and they showed his father lying in the hospital bed last night, and he was trying to talk, and then he began to cough this very painful cough. I mean, you could almost feel the pain as he coughed. You could see how much he was struggling as he tried to breathe, catching this from his 21-year-old son. And so they asked the mother, as they interviewed the mother, who was a little bit better, better condition than the father. They said to the mother, how does your son feel? Does he feel guilty about not practicing the precautions or the safety measures that have been given to all of us? Does he feel guilty about having caught the coronavirus and giving it to his father and watching his father in this condition laying in the hospital bed? And she said, yeah, he does. He realizes how foolish he was. He realizes how he didn't take this seriously. And now he feels a ton of guilt seeing his father in this condition, because all of this could have been prevented. I mean, you can control what you can control. There are some things that you cannot control, but there's certainly some things that you can control. Wearing a mask, practicing social distancing, washing your hands are things that you can control. And so again, as we look at all of this, this is going to continue to go on. And we must do what we need to do to protect ourselves and our families. And so I pray, especially to those of you listening to the Honorable James David Manning and all that is taking place. Remember, again, we are in the midst of the tribulation. You cannot forget that. Death is going to take place. That is the main reason of the tribulation. Death is going to take place. But if God has chosen you, God has called you, you certainly want to count it all joy. And just because you've been chosen, let me say this, doesn't mean that you can't have the coronavirus. Yes, God will look after us. Yes, God will protect us. Yes, God will preserve our bodies and so forth. But we can go through too, and we're going to go through as well. And so we need to have wisdom about that though we are the chosen, it can happen to us too. It's going to happen. In fact, I think many of us have already had the coronavirus. Some of us just don't know, because we have not been tested. But I think we've already had the coronavirus. And so again, it's essential for us to follow the guidelines that are being given to us. Forget about all these crazy things people are saying, infringing on their rights, taking away their freedom and so forth. You want to make sure that you can control what you can control. And certainly these safety measures for yourselves as individuals, you can control. Now, we can't control other people. They are doing some states are giving out fines and so forth to have people make sure that people follow the guidelines. But even with that, it's going to be difficult, because there are people who are very adamant about the fact that they're not going to wear masks. No matter what the government says, no matter what has been put as a place of consequence of not wearing masks and so forth. And so we're going to continue to watch this debate. We're going to continue to see the spread of the coronavirus. We're going to continue to see people die from this virus. But just know that all of this is part of the tribulation. Now, there are some who needs mercy. There's some that we need to pray for. The essential workers who go out every day and deal with this, we need to pray for them. This is very serious. I had a classmate, and she was a nurse working in the hospital, downtown hospital. And, I was speaking to her one day, and she said to me, Sabbath, people don't know how real this is. She said, every time I hear people say that this is a joke, they don't realize how serious this is. This is very serious. And she said to me, she's had to do things in the hospital that she's not really assigned to do, but because they were overrun by so many people coming into the hospital with the coronavirus, she said, Sabbath, I've had to incubate people. And she said, I've had to take the machines off of people and out of people. And she said, if you see their lungs and what is in their lungs from this coronavirus, she says, I have never seen anything like this before. And she has worked in the medical field for about 15 years, but she's never seen anything as to what she saw with coronavirus. And this was back in May that I spoke to her. She said the hospitals were so filled with bodies. There were so many bodies in the hallways of the hospital, dead bodies, that it was even hard to pass through the hospitals. And so they had to get the refrigerated trucks. Everything you've seen in the news regarding coronavirus and how it's affected people. So when people say, oh, this is a joke, this is a hoax, it's really not that serious, it's nothing more than the flu, it's just a really bad flu. Again, going back to that list that I just showed you, do you see the amount of deaths that have taken place. In New York City alone, in New York State, alone, 32,558 people have died. And again, that is not the accurate number. So when you look at this list, is this list a hoax? Are these made up numbers that people just threw in there? I mean, this is very serious, very serious. And I often think about the days of Noah, when he was trying to tell people, God said, get it right, repent, get your lives together, turn to righteousness, do the things that you need to do. And people just brushing it off, not taking it seriously. It's the same thing we're seeing now. There's so many people that are not taking this seriously. And some of them, I've seen reports, those who have said this is a hoax, it's a joke, it's not real, it's nothing more than the flu, actually were infected with the coronavirus, and a couple of them died from it. So again, as we watch this on a day-to-day basis and we look at what is going on, we have to remember the safety guidelines that have been put in place and practice it as a way of life. This is a way of life now. Wearing a mask is a way of life. Social distancing is a way of life now. You should have been washing your hands before, but even now we have to wash our hands a lot more. Is a way of life now. This is just now the way that we have to live. So this should be just second nature for us at this point in time. And so it's very serious. It is very serious. And I pray again that you continue to listen to the words that are being spoken out of this house as the Honorable James David Manning speaks.
You will come in contact with someone who is infected with the coronavirus. And you can be right there in your own home, on your own doorstep. You are going to come in contact with someone who has the coronavirus.
On Thursday, March 5th, Heather Bauer went to a casual dinner party in her town of Westport, Connecticut. 4 days later, she felt achy and feverish. She had a temperature of 101. 5 days after that, she was in the coronavirus ward at Yale Hospital, fearing that she would die.
I believe that as many as 20 to 40,000 people from Fort Greene to Harlem, New York City will die.
A well-known ER doctor here in New York who battled to save the lives of so many others. Her family now says she has taken her own life.
What we see happening is simply the hand of God in the dismantling of an unjust society. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I am he. I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning. And I'm here to serve you with news and information.